Hello, Heatseekers. It's the Heat Sheet. To paraphrase one of wrestling's greatest ever orators, a wise man told me for us to get everything we need out of this podcasting game, we'd have to leave and come back. I hate to say the wise man was right, but that is why we're back, to get everything we need from the place. We're back for you, because you are home. Heatseekers, welcome to the Heat Sheet, the TNA name for the podcast formerly known as the Daft Sheet, run by the other place until they stopped running themselves. We were the podcast nobody wanted, but by God, we were the podcast everybody got. And now, right here in 2024, from its ashes rises the Heat Sheet, a rebranded version of the podcast that you all grew to love, where we'll hit each week's wrestling news headlines to fill the front page, back page, page 3 and TV pages of our fictitious dirt sheet. I am Kris Jack, I am the editor-in-chief of the Heat Sheet, and joining me to fill edition number 1 are Lewis MacNaughton, the Nick Wayne without the daddy issues of our roster, and a man who knows his way around a ring or two, having just got married, Steve Roche. Lads, welcome to the first edition of the Heat Sheet. How the hell are these?
I'm smashing, mate. It's good to be back, and it's a bit different. It's quite fitting that that in January we've changed and had a transfer, isn't it? Especially in January transfer deadline day or deadline day eve.
Deadline day eve, the day that doesn't quite make sense for all the last minute stuff, but it's got enough teams in panic mode. Steve, got to come to you quickly. You know, it's been a massive week in terms of wrestling news and stuff, but for yourself, you've had the match made in heaven.
Yes, I have. Yes, I am now officially a married man. Excuse me for not wearing the wedding ring because I was just doing the dishes before I came on here. So ladies, don't get excited. It wasn't the quickest divorce of all time. I just forgot to put the ring back on. But no, it was if it was Dave Meltzer, I would give the wedding 5.5 stars. Couldn't have been a better day. It was beautiful. Jennifer loved it as well. Aye, it was the WrestleMania X7 of weddings. It really was.
Good stuff. And now that you are you're married, you're betrothed to each other, do you anticipate any sort of heel turns or backstabbing going on over the course of your life together?
No. But me and Jennifer are both heels by nature, so we knew what we were getting into. Now we couldn't give a shit. But nah, that's a joke. Nah. Well, there'll be turbulence. There'll be we might have the inevitable tag team split up, but we'll get back together. All the best tag teams end up back together. The Hardys, the Dudleys. So there might be a brief. Whilst there might be a brief breakup, but we'll come back again for the one last run. We even actually had with our cake toppers. I don't know if I've shown you this in our chat yet. We actually had tag team belt cake toppers. So we're tag team champions for life.
Good stuff. And Lewis, how have you been since we last spoke?
I've been alright, occupying myself by getting shit tattoos. When I could have spent the money on getting a fucking half decent mic, by the sounds of it. I've added a shit cannon to my shit writing. Because I was getting Tottenham tattoo.
You've added an arse to it.
Here and a shit cannon. It'd be as well. It would probably improve the quality of it. But no, been alright, mate. Obviously not as busy as Steve here, but yeah, getting on fine. Glad to be back, glad to be under our own control, be able to get some more content out hopefully, and just excited to get going here.
Well, that's what we're looking to do. If you're a former Daft Sheet listener, then thanks for following us across here. You'll know the format by now, and if you've never listened before, what we basically do is I play editor, and Steve and Lewis break down the best and the worst of the week's wrestling news and compete to get their headline into our fictitious dirt sheet. So we like to fill the front page, back page, page 3 and the TV pages. We're also going to look at what we think next week's headlines are going to be at the end of the show. And bang in the middle, we've got a gig guide from none other than Scottish Wrestling Network's Billy Strachan, who has gladly ran down some of the week's best upcoming local wrestling for us as well. But what we're going to do is we're going to get kicked off straight away, and we are going to look to fill the front page. So, Lewis, I will come to you first. What would you like to put on the front page of the first edition of the Heat Sheet?
I feel as though I know we want to start this podcast really nice and, upbeat, but there's not been much upbeat wrestling news the last week or so. So I'll start with the inevitable happening. CM Punk gets punked again, does he? Just when I thought his luck was turning, his mentality had sort of shifted. He seemed a bit more professional. He even did the job for Cody. He seemed to be in a better headspace and a better sort of mindset in the wrestling world, and his fucking tricep gives up on him. It's shite. It's just shite. I know you'll say he says he's got next year, he's got this and he's got that, but the way the wrestling world changes, who knows if CM Punk's going to be as relevant as he is now next year. So, yeah, Punk, just no luck whatsoever. I suppose you could say karma from the trouble he's brought, but I'll just cover it by saying it's tough shit, and we'll see what happens at WrestleMania from now on then.
It's absolutely mad. I mean, we spoke a number of the times in our former parish about how there would be a big AEW pay-per-view, a big AEW event, and it would be overshadowed by CM Punk doing something or not doing something or doing something they shouldn't have. And yet again, we find ourselves in the aftermath of the Royal Rumble, one of the most anticipated PLEs of the year, with the news dominated by the fact that he's made a chocolate yet again. When you were watching the Rumble on Saturday, Lewis, did you notice the point at which he got injured?
To be honest, mate, I was completely and utterly blitzed. So I couldn't even tell he was in the ring, to be honest, never mind he got injured. I was just seeing figures moving about the screen. But no, he wasn't as, I don't know, he's getting on a bit. So I genuinely couldn't tell if he was maybe just a bit sluggish, maybe a bit ring rusty, or injured. And you could see the only point I noticed there might be something wrong was when he went over the top rope, landed on the floor, and grabbed straight at his arm. That was the only point that I noticed there might be something wrong here. And the next time I thought about that was when the sort of dirt sheets were writing about Punk being injured. So no, I didn't notice it as it was happening, but it's not surprising, is it?
It's not surprising. He's been prone to these injuries since his AEW comeback. And it is a shame because, we were full of hope that we were going to get some absolutely classic matches in the lead up to WrestleMania, if not at WrestleMania itself. And one of those matches that looked like it was going to be coming to fruition over the last couple of weeks was him facing off against Drew McIntyre. Punk kind of foreshadowed events during the Royal Rumble the other week there when he said, I'm going to punch you in the face and I'm going to throw you out last, which inevitably is what happened when Punk get rid of Drew. But Steve, coming off the back of the Rumble and into Raw this week, when Punk was in the ring, telling the WWE universe that his WrestleMania plans were absolutely gubbed, Drew came down and cut an amazing promo. Have you seen that at all?
Yeah, I did. I rewatched it today. I think it goes straight to the top of the list of Drew's greatest ever promos. I think what he said was really poignant, and it really suits this great kind of bitter heel character that he's working with just now as well. If I could put my here I go again. If I could put my silver tinfoil hat on for a second, something tells me it's a work.
Do you think?
Because, yep, well, two things say it to me, or dropping hints at me. One, the fact that Drew attacked Punk and his arm directly after towards the end of the segment. And second of all, is how Drew, before Raw even started, took to social media, kind of claiming to take credit for Punk's injury. And as we know, WWE don't like their wrestlers kind of dropping hints like that or dropping tweets like that when the storyline related without prior approval. So there's again, probably I'm wrong because 9 times out of 10, as we know, I'm always fucking wrong when it comes to my predictions and my my guesswork on it. But there's a wee hit. There's the dark side of me saying this is a work. This is a work because like think how the pop Punk would get if maybe I don't know they go home Raw towards WrestleMania. He charges to the ring. He's still got his sling on. He's about to confront Drew. Drew says to him, "You come in this ring, and I'll end your career. Never mind, end your WrestleMania hopes." And then Punk does a Batista and says, "Well, I know something you don't know." And he puts his arm at his sling, and it's all good as new. And he just absolutely leathers Drew to the ground, and then says, "What I've came here to announce is it's you and me this Sunday." No holds barred or something like that in a grudge match.
It'd be a good build if they could do that, but I think the way that it was all reported and stuff, I think it probably is legit. I know that Drew kind of went to town, but I think there's if it's been a full tear of the tricep, then it's not going to get any more injured, and I think that's probably what's kind of led to the beatdown that they had. But it made for very very compelling television, like the whole thing, the cancer story that CM Punk told. Obviously, that hits home with Drew and his mum, but just that line, "I prayed for this to happen," just absolute brilliant pro wrestling. What do you see CM Punk doing for the foreseeable then? If he's too much of a, do you see him as being too much of a commodity to keep him off screen, or do you think he should go away and make his comeback even better?
I think that the fact he's got 3 years on his contract gives him a bit of time to sort of be a bit, what's it, about the heart grown fonder with sort of the space. Yeah. So I think that's a potential. But bringing him on here and there as a sort of, say if it was as a general manager or whatever, I think that's just a tool to bring him on. I don't think Punk would really want that himself. Like, obviously, I'm close pals with him, so I know that. It's just some tinfoil stuff again. But I'd imagine that just the sort of same way that Cody was out, just give a bit of time for the fans to miss him, just so he can come back. And as well with the thing about the arm, I think even through the punches with that arm, I think there might be, yeah, you could say maybe it's a work, but then you could also say maybe it's his other arm. Someone's seen there was a potential tricep injury. Maybe it's his other arm. Maybe they're playing us like that. But
it could be,
I think yeah.
That's all the smoke and mirrors that we love about wrestling, isn't it? That's
exactly.
all the stuff, the what's going on and what's not going on. Right, we'll come to you, Steve, to see if you can find a headline that is going to better CM Punk's injury after the Rumble.
Well, as Lewis touched on, we would all love it to be happy-go-lucky stuff. But as you know, from the news this week in wrestling, there's been very little happy-go-lucky stuff to be said. And I mean, CM Punk's WrestleMania plans scuppered are tiny, minuscule compared to the extremely dark and depraved allegations and lawsuits that's been labelled against one Vincent K. McMahon. that's been brought to light just towards the end of the week there. I'm not going to go into the gory details because I think the vast majority of people listening to this already know what they are. They're just too shocking and too sickening to repeat. And plus, there's a slight chance of maybe one or two listeners who have been a victim of SA, and I don't want to give them the trauma of it. What I more want to discuss is the possible ramifications of this towards WWE, because they're going to be enormous. Okay, Vince is gone now, and the problem is that now he is gone. He's resigned all his executive power, his position as I think it was the executive chairman, was it, or the executive director, whatever it is, and he's finally gone, and that's a huge story in and of itself. I mean, for the first time ever, no blood relation of the McMahon is now in senior management of WWE. That's another huge story, but that's going off track. But this all came a day or two after the Netflix announcement. That should have been WWE's crowning achievement. I think, and then the day before that, The Rock joined the TKO board. So two seismic announcements were made. All the stars aligning, and then bang, in comes this absolute monstrous piece of news following these allegations about McMahon. I mean, how they manage this, I don't know yet, but they cannot get this wrong. They've got to get everything right from then on. And I don't think Triple H did much of a good job in that Royal press conference.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I think he dropped the ball there, and I think TKO might think, shit, we might need somebody else to in there to manage that better. You know, Paul Heyman was one, I think, who would have handled that a lot better. It's also, I'm trying to think of a comparison. The only one that comes to mind is Jimmy Savile with the BBC. The BBC, what's it been like now, 13, 14 years since all that came out? The BBC still has not shook off the ghost of Jimmy Savile. That's what it's going to be like with the WWE, with Vince and all these.
With the stuff that came out in the lawsuit and the text messages and everything that were shared, and again, you know, it's like we were saying in our group chat, you really don't want to be reading the stuff in it, but you end up reading it and you see what's going on. There's more than Vince McMahon that's going to be implicated in this.
We know Brock Lesnar.
That's where it could be.
Aye.
It could be worse than Savile case in that terms, because there's so many people could be implicated in it. There's rumour and conjecture abound about who knows sort of who would have known stuff, who wouldn't have known. But it's just absolutely like horrible, demeaning stuff. And like when I was reading the text message transcripts and stuff, I was thinking, this has got to be made up. This has got to be like this is really bad, like fan fiction type levels of stuff. But if it does turn out that it's real, then and what the victims or participants or whatever have been getting up to, it's horrible, absolutely horrible. Lewis, on the Netflix stuff that Steve mentioned, so we can do a Triple H and, you know, focus on the positives, I suppose, from the past week in the WWE stratosphere. 500 million a year for 10 years to be the kind of the front runner or the kind of cornerstone of Netflix's live sports or live entertainment output. How do you think that is going to work, not just for the WWE but for Netflix as a whole?
I think that it's going to be interesting to see how much content we actually get. Obviously, I know it's raw just now anyway, but with the news that the WWE Network shutting down as well at the end of the year, I believe, will we get a sort of archive of what we've had there on Netflix? I've seen like one of the good things come out of this is quite funny memes on Twitter and stuff saying when you invite a girl around to Netflix and chill and stick on Royal Rumble 2008. I found that quite amusing. But yeah, that just it makes me think what sort of selection are we going to get on it? Is it going to be just a Raw orientated thing? Are we maybe going to get all the Raw highlights from over the years or so? But this money,
Netflix is going to get cancelled after one season.
I know. And with the money wise, all this massive money coming out of the WWE, I'm interested to see where they actually spend it. You know, they can't give it to Brock Lesnar now, luckily. So it's an exciting, if they actually stay in the contract, that is, after all this shit that's come out. But I'm sure Netflix have done worse deals than this and some more shady shit and just kept up with the contract. But yeah, it is exciting for WWE. It's probably the biggest contract they've had in terms of a TV deal. Definitely is. So I'll be there from episode 1 to episode 1,000,000 if possible. But we'll see what changes. We'll see if anything changes. We'll see if Netflix has a big fat logo in the middle of the ring, or what sort of handprints that they leave over it. But yeah, it's going to be a good one.
They made a very good point. I was listening to the Rest is Entertainment podcast. Richard Osman and Marina Hyde from The Guardian do this podcast about television and films and stuff. And they were talking about the Netflix deal in WWE on the most recent episode. And they were saying that it's probably going to be what they call a loss leader for Netflix, and that it'll be a lot of trial and error. They're probably going to lose money to begin with until they can prove that the model works. But as we know from watching Raw on Sky or TNT or however we've watched it, it's full of adverts, and Netflix isn't going to be able to get away from that. So it's probably going to be an introduction into different to more tiered Netflix viewing, where you can pay to have like a subscription that doesn't have adverts, pay a bit less for one that does. You might have to pay more to get the live stuff on it as well. So although it's going to be good that everything's going to be there, you might have to kind of fork out that wee bit more to get the full WWE experience on Netflix. And just as a final thing on the whole Vince and McMahon stuff in general there, Steve, do you see any way back for them into the business at all, or do you think that any McMahon will end up back in the Fed anytime soon?
Vince McMahon's the fucking Terminator. Somehow, just when you think he's dead, up he gets again. He is the goddamn Michael Myers. Because just like last year, when all this stuff was happening, we thought he was dead and gone then, and then the TKO announcement happens and there he is again, and wearing the most evil James Bond style villain tash I've ever seen in my life. I think though, even if any of them are true, and I think we need to remember something. We do live in a world where you are innocent until proven guilty. But also, this is Vince McMahon. Look at his previous, and at least some of them have been proven to be true, and also that many people labeling accusations against you. At least some of them are telling the truth as well. Mm-hmm. I think this should be it. Well, he's going to face the next year or two in court anyway. So TKO need to keep him at his arm's length for as long as possible as well. And I think the management there, Ari Emanuel, he's like the head boss of all. He's saying we need to fucking get rid of this guy. I know they've removed him from the website. They've done as much as they can to just expel his name as well. But sorry,
with Benoit him.
Yeah. But well, this is Benoit times 100. But I mean, this is the thing. It's like, let's say another good example is Harry Potter with J.K. Rowling, all this full anti-trans stuff she came out with. Warner Brothers have spent in the past few years keeping all at arm's length. Thing is, you can't expel the name of the person who created it all. Like, let's for instance say something comes up about George Lucas. Disney can't get rid. Disney can try as much as they can to expel his name from the history of Star Wars. The fact of the matter is, he still created it. His name is forever etched in it. Do you know what I mean? It's very hard to keep the names of WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, Raw, SmackDown, etc., when it's always going to come with the name Vince McMahon. He was the one that signed off on it all. Do you know what I mean? It's going to be very hard to expel him from all that.
I think the thing is with this as well, WB fans, we're known to be quite eccentric and a bit fucking weird, but we're no evil. It's one of those things that I know that when Vince came back, there was "Thank You, Vince" and singing a song and everything. But after this go around, there will be, unless there's some form of complete idiot crowd, there's going to be no love for Vince McMahon after this, and I'm so glad of that being the case.
We live in a world where Andrew Tate still has 1 million followers on his YouTube channel. We'll still seeing plenty of creeps out there. They'll still sing his praises and claim it was a witch hunt or some shit. I mean, that's the world we're in now. Thank you very much for that, Donald Trump, you cunt.
C-bomb in the first episode. Thank you very much.
Well, let's get out of there.
Grand. Well, that's two very fitting competitors for the front page. But I think when you weigh it up, everything that went on pre-Royal Rumble is probably just that little bit bigger than everything that happened post-Royal Rumble. So, Steve, I'm going to give you the front page. And the headline for all this McMahon-adjacent stuff is Vince-idious Revelations. And as always, it looks better written down. So we'll jump to the back page now, where we look at the very best of the in-ring action from the week gone by. And it's very rare for the three of us to be sat here and get to this stage and not be talking about AEW. But I believe this week there is no All Elite action in our back page. And when we get on to something a wee bit more about that later on. But Steve, I will come to you first. What match was jumping out and sending you over the top rope in a tizzy this weekend or this past week?
Anyway, I think it's the Royal Rumble's weird because you only think when you switch it on, right, you know there's going to be 2 Rumble matches, but it's easy to forget there's often at least 2 or 3 matches in between it, and because I don't watch the shows every week anymore, and obviously I was too busy getting my wedding ready. I switched on, and to my shock, I saw Logan Paul versus Kevin Owens. I didn't even know they were feuding. I didn't even know that match was going to be on the show, but hey ho, and it was, and I was delighted it was because I thought it was a cracking match. I loved it. I think Logan Paul, he just blows your mind, doesn't it? This guy, he's not even had a double digit amount of matches. Yeah, I think that was only his 8th or 9th or something. Mm-hmm. And you would never believe it. He is unbelievable. He looks like a guy who's been doing it 10, 12 years.
He's an absolute star, and it's very gallant to watch it. But again, he's a guy he's got the money, he's got the resources, he's got the time to be training and making the most of the opportunity that's been presented to himself. And he's never really let himself down. And I think in terms of the pay-per-view as a whole, I'm in full agreement. I think the match between the two of them was the best of the night. Certainly better than the World Heavyweight or the Universal Championship match that was on it. And there's some great spots in it. And I believe as well that Kevin Owens was working it, not just with a broken hand, but with a fractured foot as well. And when you see a lot of the stuff that went on in the match, it's hard to believe that he was doing that kind of on half a wheel and half a wing. But what were your sort of favourite moments for the match, Steve? What made it stand out for you?
I loved how Logan Paul was actually working KO's hand a lot. Showing that it was good psychology. He proved it as well. He's not just like a spot monkey. The guy actually knows how to work a psychological match as well. And the finish was brilliant. That is the smartest DQ finish I have seen in years. The whole thing with the brass knocks, and the fact that the 1-2 and the referee stopped because he then noticed that the knocks were on Owens' hand, and then Cooley put 2 and 2 together to weakly knocked him out. That's a DQ because he actually did. That's the smart thing. He actually did. I thought that's a DQ finish done right, and that's the smartest one I've seen in years.
It was very well done, especially the camera angle that you got on the referee as well. What about yourself, Lewis, in terms of the KO v Logan Paul? Do you think that obviously the finish protected Kevin Owens, but it ultimately means that Logan Paul is still the United States champion? Where do you see his next opponent coming from in terms of either the Chamber or at Mania? Or do you think Owens is going to get another bite of the cherry?
I don't think they want any more DQ finishes from Logan in this reign. So I don't see KO getting another opportunity soon, especially if he's broke his foot. But anyway, I don't think he would have been the next opponent. The current situation we're in terms of Punk being injured, Gunther not having a visa, those sort of things to get into Australia, Roman probably not being there. You would think that maybe the United States title would have to be on that show, but unless it's something to give Waller a match, maybe in Australia, I don't think it's going to be defended. Then, and I think the next one's going to be LA Knight at WrestleMania, where eventually Logan's going to drop the title. Purely because he's done his little stint here, he can have a wee break, because after 15, 20 years, the wrestlers are still in bits after matches. I can't imagine how Logan is coming sort of fresh into it over the last couple of years and having maybe 7 or 8 quite hard-hitting matches. I think they're playing some sort of concussion angle as well with that interview he had after the match. I don't know if you've seen that. He just mumbled. He was in an interview and he just mumbled a few words and he just went, "Sorry," and just like walked away. You have to watch it if you've not seen it. But I doubt he'd be at the Chamber and LA Knight at WrestleMania. And that's back to the finish. That's just people say logic's gone out of wrestling. Why has he done that this year? But that's just one of the most logical things I've ever seen a referee do, and it's actually quite enlightening to see. But as far as the title goes and WrestleMania goes, I think all the routes lead to a good night for LA Knight at WrestleMania, I'd say.
That's a good shout. Just in terms of the finish, we've mentioned there about the brass knocks coming in. That the brass knocks were given by it was Austin Theory after he and Grayson Waller came down after Logan Paul's pal came out of the crowd and got all the agents worked up. It seemed like a hat and a hat and a hat to me. Like they could have just done it with Waller and Theory. There was absolutely no need for the other boy to get involved. Because you would have had Waller on the distraction and then Theory do it instead of. I just thought it was a bit much, especially on the heels of Solo Sikoa getting involved yet again in the Roman match as well. I just thought having two interferences was a bit overkill myself. What about you, Steve? What was your takes on the people not in the match being involved in the match?
I'd say that's a minor complaint. In a way, it makes sense because Waller and Theory have had this ongoing feud with Kevin Owens. They're still bitter about the whole double knockout thing as well. Which, by the way, that was my funniest moment of last year. That twin knockout thing that he where he chinned both of them at the same time. I loved that. So. I do see what you're saying, though, Chris. It could have been better where Waller just comes out, and then while he's distracting the ref, that's when Theory throws in the brass knucks. But overall, I'd say it's a minor complaint.
Well, maybe just I'm too much of a purist. Maybe that's what it is.
Aye.
Lewis, what was your favourite match or most noteworthy match of the past week?
I'm a fan of carnage in wrestling. That's my motto, I'd say. I appreciate.
I'm more of a Venom guy.
I appreciate a Randy Orton match when I see it. I appreciate a well worked sort of logical and methodical match. However, I thought the Women's Royal Rumble was just this after this. Just I've probably got some sort of ADHD that's been undiagnosed, but it just had me looking here and back and here and back, and just kept your attention throughout, other than maybe the middle of the match where it kind of tailed off a little bit. But the returns of Naomi and Jordan Grace and Cargill and Liv Morgan and everything, they could have maybe dotted them about a little bit better in terms of keeping engagement throughout the match, but the spots and everything throughout it, maybe compared to a bit of a lackluster men's match, I'd say was probably, in my opinion anyway, the best Women's Royal Rumble so far. Maybe just in terms of the talent inside it and the sort of storytelling as well. Bayley being the Iron Woman and the finally getting a bit of limelight outside of maybe tag matches and kind of getting herself out of the shadow of the three other horsewomen. It was refreshing to see, and that big cheer and pop when she won the Royal Rumble is something a couple of years ago you probably wouldn't have expected from Bayley, in terms of her popularity being a little bit lower. I know she came back after during the pandemic and was one of the stars of the show, but fell away a little bit, so I'm glad to see she got that moment. And Jordan Grace, it was just, I had to see if I was actually, how drunk I was at that stage. I just looked and went, aye, that actually is the TNA Knockouts champion.
I'm still coming in. My subscription, it kicked me out, so to go and reset my password and everything just when I was trying to get it on. So I managed to get, I had it on my phone, so I saw Naomi come in, and then the password stuff failed, and then when I eventually got it on my telly, so it was the bit where the Jordan Grace and Ivy Nile were doing the double suplex, and I was like, Jings, what's going on here? But I thought she had a great showing, and I think it was a rumble for the powerhouse women. I think, in terms of Jordan Grace being in there, Ivy Nile did really well. Nia Jax was the monster that you wanted her to be. Piper Niven was superb. I thought Piper Niven and Chelsea Green, I thought their whole shtick throughout it was amazing. And then the cherry on the top was Jade Cargill, and how she was presented. Steve, what were your first immediate thoughts on the former AEW TBS champion making her first in-ring performance for the Fed?
Well, delighted to see how well she was booked there. I'm not too surprised WWE signed her, because they took one look at her and just saw dollar signs, and that's exactly like what she is. She's walking money, as I heard somebody on YouTube put it today, and then she looked. She did not look out of place at all, and she got a big pop as well. So she's already got the crossover appeal as well. I'm also delighted that they've kept most of her same music as well. I think there is some differences, but ultimately she's got the Storm Is Coming at the start of it, and that looks great. So I'm delighted about that. Delighted that she picked up Nia Jax, threw her over, you know, I mean, instantly she's got something there with her. I also love the tease of her and Bianca when they were both press slamming folk, and they immediately had a square goal, so they know that I would say probably next year's WrestleMania that's going to be the big feud going into it. Could even be the main event, because they are going to eventually want to have a women's main event at WrestleMania again. I think those are the two that they'll be looking at. I'm really, really happy for her, and I can imagine like Cody was probably in the back there with a tear in his eye, because we know how close he is with Jade. He had a hand in her training. He had a hand in her getting signed with AEW, and as I've also heard WWE, he must have been looking on like a proud dad.
Oh, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Lewis, back to you on this one. There was a lot of great spots in the match. Steve talked about a couple there. What did you think of the creative aspects of it, and what do you think of the finish to the match as well?
I thought that the R-Truth stuff was quite well done. Just any time you see R-Truth, you know how childish and how stupid it is, but you can't help have a smile on your face. I think it's the best way to put it, whether you're 7, 17 or 70. It's just funny all around, and a couple other spots as well. I know we didn't get a Kofi spot, but we got a Kyrie spot. Going back to logic, Kyrie Sane went over the top rope and was sort of clawing on like Spider-Man. Her feet were behind her and her hands were on the edge. However, put one foot down, hop round, get back in the ring the other side. Maybe not cross her mind at any point there, but that makes two sense. It makes too much sense.
I've put down at one point, but
I think she did. Yeah.
The reverse Spider-Man was pretty cool.
And then the finish, I think the first thoughts are Jade Cargill coming into the Rumble, she has to win it. But I think she came in, presented herself as a monster, as she should have. It seemed to be one big fuck you to Vince McMahon as well. Of all the years he's just downplayed the women in WWE and WWF when it was that as well. Vince would have had a bra and panty spot in that match. He would have had a finish, someone slapping the other person off. So I'm glad, like you said, going back to the powerhouses like Piper Niven and Jade and Jordan Grace and Bianca Belair, obviously. It really put a showcase down of the women being here for the new generation, and not being here but being as good, as powerful, as strong, if not more than a lot of the men, which is again really refreshing and exciting to see. And when
it was a workers' WrestleMania, it was like, do you know what I mean? It was like, for once it was the women actually getting to be wrestlers.
Yeah, which is good to know. And the finish of, obviously, that, I can't remember the name of her, Oblivion, is it? The finisher. That was a risky move to play on the outside, throwing both your legs over an opponent into the ropes and managing to hang on. So Liv, that being her first match back in 6 months, definitely didn't do herself any harm there. And just the chicken shit heel work from Bayley to just be sitting in there and just kicking her off the apron was just a perfect finish, I thought. So yeah, excited to see where this goes. I think as a wrestling fan, you all know where this goes. It's going to be the sort of the Batista Triple H vibe from 2005, of where it looks like she's going to pick Rhea and she turns on Io Sky to a big heel turn. So I'm excited to see that. But Bayley in one of the main events of WrestleMania is the main thing here, and I couldn't be happier.
Smashing. And with that, I'm going to award you the back page, Lewis, and the headline is going to be Un-Bayley-vable Royal Rumble. So well done to you. And that is one each as we come to the halfway point of the pod. Now, for older listeners, this would usually be the centerfold piece. where we'd have an interview, and hoping that over the next few weeks going to be able to line some interviews up. In the past, we've had the likes of Tom Campbell, Simon Miller, Subculture from TNA, and a myriad of other wrestling adjacent people. But today we are opening the space up to Billy Strachan, who is going to tell you all about the most sought after or the most looked forward to wrestling shows in the UK and predominantly north of England and Scotland from listening to it this coming weekend. So Billy, here's your gig guide. Cool. So I'll just come back in with page 3 stuff. So thank you very much to Billy for filling us in on that. Those sound like some absolutely top-class shows to be getting along to. Now, we're going to move on to filling page 3, our gossip page with the most tantalising and titillating bits of wrestling news for the week. And I think, Lewis, I will get you to kick things off on this one. What is your pick for page 3?
I think going from making a negative out of a positive out of a negative, in terms of the Punk injury, it opens up an avenue for one of the superstars who are maybe going to be overlooked for the WrestleMania main event for the World Heavyweight Championship. So it's just sort of gathering your guys' opinions as well and sort of putting out mine also of who is going to be the most likely candidate to take that space. Obviously, you've got some of the front runners like Drew McIntyre and Gunther. I think McIntyre's done more than enough to get that main event at WrestleMania. Whether he does, whether he doesn't, whether his Scottish accent's putting off the higher ups to make him champ again, even though he's trying to fade it away. It's not Scottish anymore. It's whatever it is that comes out of his mouth.
He's been to the Gerard Butler.
He has.
Emeritus.
Emeritus, that's the one. Hashtag emeritus. Gunther, I know he could have some high profile matches for the Intercontinental title, which is probably what they'll do, whether they bring up Braun Breaker, have Chad Gable another crack at the whip, maybe a multi-man match of some kind. But obviously the work he's done more than earns him a championship opportunity. Cody, obviously, there's a potential for him to pick that, especially with Seth giving it the Dusty Rhodes belt patter. Sami Zayn, LA Knight, someone left field, who knows, a debut, a return. When I first thought about this, I was thinking McIntyre, but then it kind of spirals into a million opportunities for whoever. And then obviously you've got that briefcase hanging in the balance as well of the potential cash in from Damian Priest. So, what's your opinions on that? Do you think it's as simple as sticking Drew McIntyre in there, or do you think there could be something up Triple H's sleeve?
I think that the way that things have been working out with Rollins' potential injury, potentially putting him out of Mania, Punk definitely looking like he's out, and the fact that Elimination Chamber, you get so many people that aren't going to be at that either. Rollins isn't going to be performing at that, I wouldn't imagine. Punk's out, Gunther can't go. If Kevin Owens is injured, if that's going to be something that's going to keep him out as well, there's a lot of star power that's away, but it does open the door for the likes of your Drews, LA Knight. Who else? I mean, does AJ just go back into obscurity now after the 4-way? Randy Orton is well there. So you've got people, you've got main events in waiting there. But I think I agree with you. I think in terms of the body of work that he's put forward, and in terms of not having to rush any storylines or try and hot shot anybody, I think it's got to be Drew. Drew's got to be the one. If Punk's out and there's no other logical candidate, and provided he signs a new contract as well, I would say it's got to be Drew. What about you, Steve? What's your reckoning?
It's as simple as this. Cody faces Seth, because that speeds out from Raw. and you do whatever you can to get Dwayne in to face Roman at Mania for the WWE title. It's a milestone WrestleMania, guys. It's number 40. They need to do something really big, and they've got Rock back on board as a board member. Double the shares to make sure he gets double the payout next time. Pay him what he wants. Get him in against Roman for night 2, and let Cody and Seth have the match of the year on night 1, and Cody wins. I would love Drew to be in there. I really would. But we've already seen him twice face Seth and lose both times. I don't think there's enough momentum there for him. I know he's on this phenomenal heel run. But I don't know. You can't have you also can't have a heel win a title at a milestone Mania. I think that's another thing. What Drew can do is have a big match with Sammy, beat him, and then have a feud with Cody for the title. Maybe he wins it, and then maybe they exchange the belt for a wee bit, maybe up until SummerSlam when someone new comes in. Probably by then Gunther. I think that's a possibility. There's also still a bit of momentum behind Sami Zayn. He's the kind of people's the kind of people's choice in a way. He's the everyman kind of hero. He could maybe be the one that resumes that with Roman. That's a possibility. LA Knight, yeah, again, I like LA Knight, but I think some of that's worn off, and I see him more as, I think he's more fitted to get the US title off of Logan Paul. They've got unfinished business, so I think we can't let that be scuppered. And Gunther, I would rather see Gunther maybe face somebody like I'd be a good match for Gunther for the Intercontinental. Okada. He can come in as a mystery opponent.
It'd be good doing that, or are they turning Big E?
Aye, that'd be brilliant.
Or I think it'd be good fun. Maybe wouldn't it be the 5-star end or whatever to Gunther's reign, but this big meaty man match the Big E was suggesting the other week there.
The big meat battle royal or something.
Gunther, Big E, Bronson Reed, Ivar, Otis, Omos, just all the big fuckers. Just pile them in. And see what can be done there. But back on it with you there, Lewis. Do you feel confident that Rollins is going to make it to Mania with his injury?
Aye, yeah, I think so. Rollins is, if all this backstory is true about his back, I think he's probably gone through worse. He's had dodgy wheels before with those knees and everything. I think if he does one last thing in wrestling, it'll be a match at WrestleMania 40 here. So I think they're going to do whatever he can, wrap him up in bubble wrap. Don't even make him walk to the ring for a promo on Raw. Just have him at home doing vignettes from his bed until WrestleMania 40. Doing vignettes from ice baths, doing vignettes from the doctor's table, wherever he needs to be right now. Keep him there, because CM Punk being out's bad enough, but your workhorse champion not making it to the grandest WrestleMania there's ever been is going to compile the misery on top of the fucked up shit that WWE's been experiencing for the last week or two. So I think he does make it. I think he's too stubborn to not make it unless something goes severely wrong in the next few weeks. I think we will see Seth Rollins in probably night one's main event of WrestleMania.
Cool. Rumours abound as to what's going to happen with Rollins in the lead up to Mania. There, it's a good choice for page 3. Steve, do you have anything that can trump it?
I don't know about trumpet. I was determined to bring something about a positive news to the show because we knew there was going to be some bleak topics we were talking about between injuries and all the horrible accusations. Something I found was that WWE management are really, really high right now on Trick Williams in NXT. Some have even described him as a future WrestleMania main eventer. I mean, if that's true, then boy oh boy, is that lad got a bright future. And I don't, as you know, guys, I don't watch NXT very much. I try my best to keep my ear to the ground on it and find out what's happening. So I don't know a lot about this guy, but I do know he gets a big reaction whenever he comes out. He gets, what's the thing they chant for him again?
That trick. Whip that trick.
Yeah, whip that trick. Aye, so he's got a big kind of a fan interaction thing there as well. I know he's got the title match with Ilya Dragunov on Saturday at Vengeance Day. If this is true, then he's probably going over. He's probably going to get the belt. I'd assume then he would face Carmelo Hayes for it at Stand and Deliver, because I know they've had this sort of inner feud. It's kind of like this. It's like the new Ciampa Gargano thing, isn't it? Where they're best, they're frenemies kind of thing. So I think that's going on there. So it's really refreshing to see that there's a lad there that WWE management have recognised as a big star, and he's going to go on to do big things, and they've got big plans for. I think it's now official. Braun Breaker's now in the main roster, isn't he? He got the Rumble appearance. And Nick Aldis on Monday night hinted that he signed him for SmackDown. So
I think that I think that Shawn Michaels said he's got a bit of unfinished business, but I think it's one of those things that he's just going to wrap it up and then hopefully be up, because he's more than ready, is he?
Aye, because he had a really good straw in the Rumble.
He's been more than ready for a couple of years. My fear for Braun Breaker is he peaks too soon, and it could maybe be the same for Trick Williams as well. Like if he gets called up too soon as well, because you see what's happened to the likes. I think Austin Theory's the kind of poster boy for that. The guy that he was the next chosen one, and they've made him an absolute chump. So I'm hoping that they can do a bit more with Trick on there. But that's a decent shout. But I think just on the fact that the Rollins stuff is just that wee bit more kind of mainstream, and I want the dirt sheet to sell. I am the heat sheet to sell. Then I think I'm going to go with Seth Rollins WrestleMania Shooters, and the headline I'm going to go with is roll up for Rollins, which is very hard for me to say with my R-based speech impediment. Now, the final page that we need to fill on this week's episode, the maiden edition of the heat sheet, is our TV pages, which is where we like to look at stuff that is wrestling related, but not necessarily wrestling. So, guys, what have your picks been? What's been the non-in-ring wrestling media that's been getting you tuning in or subscribing or swiping or whatever it is you do these days? Come to you first, Steve.
It's been a shockingly AEW free episode, so we'll finally come in with an AEW subject. I've really enjoyed AEW in recent weeks. It's that YouTube show they do where they just have a sit down with one of the wrestlers and then they have a laugh with them. It's presented by RJ City, a guy that we kind of loosely know as well from our Wrestling Daft days. there's been a couple of really good ones. The Nigel McGuinness one from about New Year's time was hilarious.
Yeah, that was class. That was really good.
Aye, when he rounded off and when he called Brian Danielson a word that's already been dropped in this show, so we can't.
I believe it was clam digger.
Yeah.
Actually,
It started with a C anyway.
I had to look up what a clam digger was, because I wasn't sure how defamatory or how insulting the word was. And the Urban Dictionary, in fact, I'll bring it up again here. The Urban Dictionary definition of clam digger. Oh, where am I?
Is it not got something to do with? Again, we're risking cancellation here. I don't want to be pissing off Billy with any possible
Episode 1
Spotify violations. Does it not get something to do with ladies' private parts?
A clam digger is a woman who's constantly scratching her dirty stink hole during the case of
thought so.
stuff. And it's also boys who like girls who like girls. And it can also be a man's large cock with a flat type head. So yeah, quite a. You can, I suppose Brian Danielson can take his pick of what he wants to be on that. But yeah, AEW has been quite entertaining, especially now that RJ City's having more of a mainstream AEW role as part of the Tony Storm kind of stuff as well. So there's more of it I definitely need to check out. And there's
the Mariah May one was really good as well. She's like, she's really funny actually as well, and she plays it off really well. And you know, she's a big star now. I'll look forward to when she gets given more stuff to work with as well.
Cool. That's a good choice. And Lewis, what would you look to put as the featured show on the TV pages of the Heat Sheet this week?
It was a brief stint for AEW there. I'll bring us back to the Fed. Impulsive, Logan Paul's podcast. He managed to interview John Cena. Was it last week, maybe the week before? But the way Cena speaks just about his whole life, he's the ultimate company man, but he's funny as well. You know, he's witty. He's a great interview. So that was from start to finish. I think it was an hour and a half, something like that. Seemed like quite a quick watch because he was talking about learning Mandarin purely because WWE hadn't explored the Chinese market enough, and it was the one place that didn't get it. So he was trying to be that sort of bridge the gap between their lack of knowledge and potentially watching the product.
Just more time learning Mandarin than he did training for that sixth move of doom. Was it the Fury
punch?
Or whatever it was?
I have no idea why that was a thing. There's probably some joke that's going straight over my head with why that was a thing and why Elias actually took it and got pinned by it. But there's his mentality towards... On you go, Steve.
I was going to say, apologies on that, mate. Do you know I read something that Cena's officially now the most famous American in China? He's ahead like Taylor Swift. He's ahead of like even Trump. That's how like popular he is in China.
I think it's because his name kind of looks like China.
Aye, well, it's John Cena. You know, it's like, but it's also well, he's had a couple of big movies in China. He did that one with Jackie Chan a year ago, and that was it was just released on Netflix here, but it was huge in China. It was like a Harry Potter film to them, like how popular it was.
Class. Need to check that out as well.
The Cena's mentality towards life and towards the business and towards sort of doing everything he wants to do, and what was his motto? It doesn't matter if he fails what he does, but if he's who he says he is and does what he says he's going to do, then he can't really be put himself down or anything like that, and he can hold his head high at the end of the day. It was quite motivating for a wrestling podcast, considering we try and pick the worst in a lot of things. He was trying to pick the best out of his career, out of his life, out of his shortcomings, and it was refreshing to see outside influencers like Logan Paul, who is now a WWE superstar, talk so highly of the sport. You know, you get a lot of people who don't really know about it or have only just experienced sort of a fleeting visit to it, sort of bringing it down, slating it, saying it's this and that, it's just acting, it's whatever. Aye, cool, it is acting, but the way Logan Paul speaks about it being a lot more than that, being something that connects everyone and something that takes a lot of skill and a lot of, like we said earlier, he doesn't just get the high flying moves. He gets the rhythm and the sort of routine and the dance behind it as well, which is refreshing to hear from someone who has such a big presence on the internet like he does. You know, he's not using clickbait bullshit to try and get himself more popular. He's actually saying what is true and saying how he feels rather than what he knows will get views. So start to finish, it gets emotional. It talks about obviously his forest nonsense, and how Rock completely cut him out of his life and out of his circle after that happened, and now he sees him backstage sometimes and he completely ignores him. It talks about Cena's, if you heard the story a million times, Cena being on the back of the bus and rapping a wee bit for the boys, and Steph hears it and brings him into SmackDown the next week with this rapper gimmick. It just talks through his whole life, his whole career, and kind of leaves you at the end of it a bit more upbeat than when you started it, I reckon. So for a wrestling podcast to do that, I know this one's probably not going to do it. Everyone's going to be a lot more depressed after listening to this. It's enlightening to hear. So that would be my pick for anyone that's not seen it or heard of it.
No, that's a good pick, and I think I'm going to go with that as well as our pick for the TV pages as well. So rather fittingly, Lewis, as we're coming towards the end of the podcast, your time is up. Time's up by John Cena. I thought that was a longer clip actually. Here, I'll give you this one instead. Out of time. Oh, I thought I had the full thing in that as well. Anyway, before we leave you, I'm going to recap the headlines from this week. It's been a 2-2 draw. By the look of it here. In fact, no, it's not. It's been a 3-1 win for the.
Nice. If I could get
victory.
He has.
He spanked me.
Start as you mean to go on.
Starting the heat sheet on the front foot there, Lewis. So our
can only go downhill from here.
The front page on the maiden edition of the heat sheet was Steve's pick for all the Vince McMahon carry on of the Vince-idious Revelations. The back page we had Un-Bayley-vable Women's Royal Rumble. Page 3, we had roll up for Rollins, and Impulsive with John Cena is the TV pick of the week. Now, before I let you go, lads, we're going to introduce a new section to this. I mean, I don't know if it is new. Is it new? Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, we're going to have this section, which we're going to call Next Week's Headlines. So, before I let you go, lads, Steve, what do you think we are going to be talking about this time next week?
Well, hopefully, we're going to find out more about the card for AEW Revolution, because, well, we know some of it, or we believe we know some of it, and I think after tonight's Dynamite, we're going to find out more. I'm predicting it'll be a confirmed triple threat for the world title: Samoa Joe, Hangman Page, and Swerve Strickland. I think it'll be announced as well. It'll be Darby Allin and Sting versus the Young Bucks for Sting's final match. And I think, well, is it next week? I think Darby and Sting challenge Big Bill and Ricky Starks for the tag titles. There might be a good chance now that might be for the tag belts.
Oh,
If that
100%. It will be. Sting and Darby will win that, and then Sting will go out on his back, so the Bucks take the belts. It's got to be the way they do it.
Aye. Exactly. Because I think it would be a bit of a bummer that Sting loses, especially in Greensboro, which was the kind of NWA home in a way, because that was like where the original Starrcade took place. I think it was where he had his first world title match against Ric Flair and all that. So it'd be a bit of a bummer if he loses. But Sting's a pro. He's a traditionist as well. He'll go out on his back, and I think the Young Bucks have found a bit of rhythm again. They've got a bit of their mojo back with this new kind of snide sort of VP thing they're going, like Matthew and Nicholas, call us by our Christian names kind of thing. So they've got a bit of momentum back. So I think that. So I think hopefully this time next week we're going to be talking about what's going to be coming with Revolution on March the 4th, is it? It's the first week of March anyway, I know that.
Something like that. Cool. And Lewis, what are you hoping or expecting that you think is going to be making the headlines in the Heat Sheet next week?
I'm hoping that one of the headlines is Punk's WWE Universe with fake dodgy wing. And another one that a few people might be hoping that might get us cancelled in the first episode is Vince McMahon dies at 78. So I'll leave it at that.
Yep, and on that, thank you very much for listening to the maiden edition of the Heat Sheet. I have been Kris Jack. You can follow me on socials at KrisJack85. Steve, where can people find you?
My Instagram name is Steve Striker. I just set up a new X account. It's called Scuba Steve.
And yourself, Lewis?
LewisMac2305 on Twitter, LewisMac3 on Instagram. Just keep swiping right, you'll find me on Tinder. And
that's what I meant, my missus.
And anyway, and tune into the Twitter for the Heat Sheet, and you'll find some of our ramblings in the next couple of weeks, hopefully.
Yep. So with that.